"Good morning, Colonel." The judge's words echoed across the courtroom, and in that instant, everything seemed to freeze. Not the clerk, not the attorneys, not my daughter, Anna, and definitely not Vivian Hart, my mother-in-law, who had been wearing the confident smile of someone certain she had already won. The moment Judge Mallory addressed me as Colonel, the color drained from her face. I remained still, my hands neatly folded. 3 months earlier, in Norfolk, I had been standing in my kitchen making chicken soup when a certified letter arrived. Ever since my husband Daniel passed away, every interaction with his family had become an argument disguised as concern. Vivian criticized the flowers at his funeral, accused me of selling Daniel's boat too quickly, and dismissed me as overly emotional. The petition alleged that I had manipulated Daniel into leaving the lake house to me. That cedar cabin on Smith Mountain Lake had been our sanctuary for 32 summers. During his battle with cancer, it was the one place where he felt he could truly breathe. Wrapped in a navy blanket, he would sit quietly on the dock while I read nearby. Anna found me sitting at the kitchen table and urged me to settle the matter. She reminded me that Grandma had money and an army of lawyers. I looked up and told her that I was Daniel's family. After retiring, Daniel and I had chosen to keep my military career private. I wanted a life that no longer required sacrifice and bloodshed. A week later, Vivian hosted a Sunday dinner and invited everyone. Her riverfront home sparkled beneath chandeliers, with polished silver shining from every surface. She sat at the head of the table like royalty, while her son Marcus barely met my eyes. "Legal disputes can become very costly," Vivian remarked. "You must be feeling overwhelmed." "I'm handling it," I replied. "You should have taken our offer," Marcus muttered. "Dad always meant for the property to remain with us." I looked directly at him. Daniel made his wishes perfectly clear. Vivian delicately dabbed her lips. "That's what your lawyers say." "My lawyers?" I asked. "I don't have any." Her smile widened. "You always thought you were smarter than everyone else, Margaret." Then she added, "In the end, you were only a wife." I placed my fork down. "I'll see you in court." She let out a quiet laugh. "You're finished." That evening, I opened an old leather case tucked away in my closet. Inside were my commission documents, military records, and the silver eagle insignia I hadn't touched for years. Holding it in my hand, I remembered the woman I had been before grief convinced me to shrink. On the morning of the hearing, I put on gray slacks and a navy blouse, tied back my silver hair, and met Anna outside the courthouse. She handed me a cup of coffee, her face carrying the anxious expression of a daughter watching her mother walk straight into a storm. "Mom, this is your last chance. Just settle." I glanced at her. "Your father never tolerated bullies." Inside, Vivian stood near security dressed in a cream-colored suit, pearls gleaming around her neck. 3 attorneys lingered beside her. When she noticed me, that familiar icy smile returned. Margaret actually showed up. One of the lawyers looked at me, then at the empty space where my legal team should have been. No one was there. I took my seat alone. At exactly 9 o'clock, Judge Mallory entered the courtroom. He looked toward me and said, "Good morning, Colonel." Silence swept through the room. Vivian's smile disappeared instantly. Judge Mallory opened the case file. Retired Colonel Evelyn Shaw served in the Judge Advocate General's Corps for over 20 years. Vivian's attorney cleared his throat. "We were unaware." "That," the judge replied, "would be an understatement." I answered the court's questions with calm precision, while Vivian's legal team attempted to portray me as a helpless widow dependent on others. They claimed I had isolated Daniel during his illness. I responded with a series of questions. "Did you interview the hospice nurses?" "No." "Did you examine the visitation records?" "No." "Did you speak with Daniel's oncologist?" Again, no. Then I submitted Exhibit D. It was Daniel's signed estate letter, written 8 months before his death. In it, he clearly stated that the lake house belonged solely to me and that any future challenge would go against his wishes. He had even specified that he was acting voluntarily and without pressure. Vivian turned pale. "That's impossible." "No," I replied. "It's inconvenient." During a recess, Anna leaned toward me. "You were really a colonel?" "Retired." "You prosecuted military crimes?" "For 20 years. When proceedings resumed, I introduced my final piece of evidence. Recordings of phone calls Vivian had made while Daniel was dying. Her voice crackled through the courtroom speakers. "If Margaret really loved you, She'd return the house. "You're sick, Daniel. You're not thinking clearly." Then Daniel's weary voice answered, "Mom, stop." By the end of the week, the judge ruled in my favor. The petition was denied. The lake house remained mine. Outside the courthouse, Anna wrapped her arms around me in a tight embrace. Several weeks later, I met Vivian at a diner. Without her pearls, she seemed smaller somehow. She admitted she had been angry, and that holding on to control had felt easier than facing grief. "I loved him too," I told her. Tears filled her eyes. For the first time, I no longer saw a villain. I saw a frightened mother who had transformed her fear into cruelty. Winter eventually settled around the lake house. I repaired the loose railing on the dock, painted the shutters, and welcomed the quiet back into my life. Sitting alone on the porch, I watched moonlight stretch across Smith Mountain Lake. And for the first time, I felt something different. Not victory, peace,